Good afternoon, everyone. I'm joined today by Sandi Rhys Jones, who is the president of the CIOB, and we're going to find out a bit about her and her background, and very excitedly find out more about the hashtag PPE That Fits campaign. That is something the HSE People network is very keen to support and be involved with. So if you don't mind, Sandi, could you just begin by explaining a bit about your background and how you came to be in the prestigious position that you're in today?
Oh, prestigious position. That was a surprise. I've worked in the industry for many years and been very involved in all sorts of activities around improving performance. So I've worked on government industry working groups. I've been involved in initiatives to improve performance at the same time as running my own business in the industry, which I've done for a very long time, working across the industry, contractors, consultants, specialist subcontractors, manufacturers of cement, and so on. And one of the things about this, which I was a bit slow to twig, really, which sounds a little odd, is that I worked across the industry because the industry has so many different sectors. If you work across the industry, you can work in a non-competitive way. But what it also gave me, I then realised, was a reputation for understanding how the industry works and all the different players, but I wasn't seen as partisan. And when I was taken on to do research projects or to help organisations improve or bring about change or diversify, it became clear that one of the factors was the fact that I could be a critical friend. So I wasn't seen as a consultants specialist, although I worked with them. And I think, getting back to your original question, probably one of the reasons why I am in this position now, which is really so rewarding and very exciting and a bit humbling, I have to say, is that the CIOB itself is a very broad church. And that is so special, that we're not in our silos. It's not the engineers wondering whether to speak to the surveyors or the professional versus the non-professional, which is a red rag to a bull for me. It's recognising that there are so many different roles, and this is a body that is a home to them all, with the key objective of really being very competent, committed, modern professionals. So in a roundabout sort of way, I think that's one of the reasons why I have ended up with this post, because of this broad approach, and because I'm a compulsive builder. I think construction is nothing short of miraculous. Even though it can drive you nuts sometimes, it is an amazing industry. So I hope that goes somewhere to answering your question.
Oh, it does, and your passion is palpable. It's lovely. Can we talk about the hashtag PPE That Fits campaign? Because that's obviously something that's becoming more and more relevant in construction and other industries. And you obviously have the reach to, impact people with this campaign. How did it come about?
Well, it's been niggling me for quite a while because I'm a compulsive builder and I do quite a lot of the work myself. It was always an irritation to get stuff that fitted, but I saw it very much as a purely personal thing. But what really brought it to a head for me was a few months ago, a friend posted on LinkedIn that she was horrified to find that her daughter, who was one of two women on a welding course, was not provided with the proper flame-proof protective equipment until the very last week of their course. And she, quite rightly, was so incensed and upset by this. She had a little bit of a vent on LinkedIn. She's an engineer. Her daughter has stayed in the non-traditional role, if you like, but she's moved away from the built environment sector. She's gone to a different sector, but fulfilling the same sort of work, where she felt that it was recognised it was important to do this. And that just triggered with me that this was something that had been rumbling in the background, The number of women has increased. I know percentage terms, it looks pretty poor. But if you look at what that means in real human beings, it changes the dynamic. If you say we're 14%, I mean, I know on site it's a lot less, but the average, 14%. If you look at 14% of the construction industry workforce as a whole, which is very big, you're talking way over 300,000 women. And that feels rather different, doesn't it? That seems rather a lot.
Yes.
All different shapes and sizes, all doing different jobs. Most of the women I know, and I know a lot who work in the industry, love being on site. In fact, that's another issue. How can you progress without leaving site in a way? So I started making inquiries and raised the issue, and it just took off, including meeting some very interesting and very thoughtful women who have done a lot of it for themselves. So that's when I thought, let's sit round a table. And CIOB said, yes, this sounds good. CIOB People, which is the journal specifically looking at human resource issues, said, yes, let's sit round a table and talk. And it is quite clear that there is a really important need and there is a failure in the system to recognise it. It's been very easy to say, oh, well, we'll have small, medium and large and XL. And then there's the, and we'll make it pink. But as one of our participants said, who'd spent a lot of time in the scaffolding industry and is now working with ISG, she said, no, you can't just wash it under the carpet like that. You don't pink it and shrink it. Let's think it. And she could really back up this observation because she's 5'11", so this knee-jerk reaction into, oh, well, I suppose we've got to get PPE that will fit women, so we'll just reduce it all down. And that, the more I get involved in this, the more I realise that it is, some of it sounds so obvious, but it's body shape. Yeah. And I think, and then there's pure safety. I mean, again, one of our participants who was until recently a tower crane driver said, you look like a clown for a start. So that takes away confidence. I mean, you just feel. So she said, you're wearing trousers where you're rolling them up round the feet, and the crutch and everything else is in the wrong place because that's the way it is. And we've got bosoms and bottoms, but, sometimes in different places and on a different scale. But it's a body shape thing. And she said the sleeves are far too long and gloves generally are far too big. How can you climb scaffolding or the tower to a tower crane or do plumbing or electrical work if your fingers of your gloves are an inch longer than your fingers? So it really is a PPE issue. The answer's in the name. Personal protective equipment. It's not a question of saying, well, I'd like it to look nicer. So the workshop we had looked really seriously at this. And I think it's important also to make the point that I was an employer. I ran my own business. I had staff. I'm not a rose-tinted spectacle, unrealistic person. I understand you need to run a business or produce materials or supplies and protect your workforce in a business-like way. So where were the issues? Was it a procurement issue? Was it a manufacturing scale issue? So we've acknowledged that. But as we've been told, where there is properly fitting PPE, it flies off the shelves. So there's a demand.
Yes.
There's a
Absolutely.
demand, and there is a pure justification for it. So where are the blockages? Why isn't it working? And that's what we've really begun to unpick. And in the meantime, the sisters are doing it for themselves. one of our roundtable people has just had a footwear company produce boots. because the boots aren't made to a female last, which is why rugby players and football players have problems, because they're not designed right. So that is really very exciting. I'm really interested that we've also produced now this guide, a resource guide. Here are the companies that are doing it. Interestingly, quite a few overseas, but we've also had a lot of input from CIOB connections and people abroad. So there's a company been launched in Australia to provide PPE that fits, and it includes also things, maternity PPE. And there's simple stuff. I mean, I can't believe this doesn't affect blokes either, but I mean, I never wear a jumpsuit anymore. I don't know about you, but I mean, the whole kerfuffle when you know. And somebody has now got round to designing a coverall, boiler suit, jumpsuit, however you want to describe it, that unzips around the waist.
Yep, I know exactly who you're talking about, and we're all very excited about that. I think
yes, is brilliant.
Has huge potential and such a simple idea.
Yes, yeah. So we're really, really happy by the reaction, the response. Across the industry, men, women alike, manufacturers approaching. And I think the final little comment, which I find quite interesting, is that I have had engagement from 3, or is it 4 now, 3 women who've worked in the fashion industry saying, this is really interesting. I'm now working in the construction sector, and they seem to have identified the issue back to body shape. They're saying in the fashion industry, you design for bodies and shapes. In construction protective wear or in workwear, generally, uniforms, it's a variation on a square or a rectangle.
Yep.
And the latest, I don't know whether you've seen this, I should send this through afterwards. There was a wonderful picture of one of the winners in the top 100 women in construction last night, who made her evening dress out of high-vis fabric.
We saw that. What a fantastic symbol.
Yes, yes. So to me, I've been thinking about that a lot today, because I did have a little blip in my construction. Well, I say a blip in my construction career. I started as a journalist. I started in advertising, then as a journalist, and then I became involved in the management and the construction research and other areas. And at one point I thought, oh, girls aren't supposed to do this. And I was offered a job on a trade fashion journal, the equivalent of Women's Wear Daily, but here in the UK. So I was a trade fashion journalist for a couple of years. I was drawn to the production. I mean, it was quite nice doing the pretty stuff and going to the shows and fashion shows. But what I was really interested in was all the changes that were taking place at that time with regard to production, new elastomeric fabrics, laser cutting techniques. You know, so again, I was drifting back towards the technology. So to come round now, many years later, and have conversations at WEAG last week with a woman who's involved in social value and customer care saying, well, I was in the fashion industry. It just reminds us that you don't separate. We're back to the silos, you know, and there's an opportunity there to work with each other. So these perceptions of how you make clothes that fit, that do the job, so you're not conscious of wearing them. That's where we want to be, isn't it? You want to feel
absolutely
you're putting something on that fits, is serviceable, does the job, and is functional, and preferably can be washed.
Yes.
Preferably could be sustainability. Yeah. And maybe made of recycled. Gloves that you can wash and dry every day and put to air, because I think that's another thing we're all very passionate about, and certainly it's one of our key objectives in the CIOB. So let's have this stuff that works and fits, but not disposable, not once only wear, and essentially keep people safe.
Right.
Keep people safe.
That's it. And we can hope that maybe a campaign like this is going to open the doors to the next generation of women that want to be in these industries, because they are included, and they don't have to find something, a man's PPE, and have it shrunk or anything. They'll be able to just go to a rack and take off a hanger, and there it is, their PPE that fits.
Yes, absolutely. There are some good companies. I mean, Tideway, we had somebody from Tideway. TfL did something 5 or 6 years ago, and that's where you think, well, is it purely a matter of scale? And it isn't. It's how we change the procurement, how we make it possible. And a lot of people I know just say, well, I'm not doing the company route. I'm going to go and source my own and hope I'll be reimbursed. So that's driving it. I'm so pleased. I mean, tremendous support from the CIOB team. And it's a privilege to be president, but I have to say it's wonderful having a group of people like Becky, the policy team. I've been at the party conferences last week and this, and there is a team there all driving towards bringing about effective change. So that's tremendous. And it will be great to shift the dial on this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there anything that people can do as individuals to help support this campaign and drive it forward?
Well, I think that if people have found solutions, or they're aware of companies that are very good, either companies who provide the PPE, or if they're working in a company that's cracked this, that are aware of it and are trying to make a difference and it's always really helpful to have for instances, isn't it? So knowing about things that are working is good. Contribute to our resource. As I say, we've got this list now of the different companies where you can go. If people have ideas about particular issues around it, maybe there's something we haven't thought of, or maybe there's something, a variation on this. So sharing that, hopefully if they're looking for PPE that fits, our resource site will be helpful to them. But in a sort of positive construction way, we would welcome examples or connections, because then you can say, well, these people are doing it, and nothing like a little bit of competition to show.
Absolutely.
To show
shout out about it. Show
absolutely
off.
Absolutely.
Who's doing it well, and let's celebrate that and inspire other companies to do the same.
I think the other thing that I'm really interested in is that it's an opportunity for us in construction, which sometimes has a bit of a reputation for not being particularly quick off the mark. I think we have an opportunity here to share with other sectors. So around the table, we had somebody who was in the services. It's only a few weeks ago that the Chief Constable of Manchester admitted, or he didn't even admit it, he declared, he made the point that he was embarrassed that body armour wasn't an appropriate shape and fit for women officers. We've got the sportswomen, and firefighters, women firefighters. So I think if we can do something that is practical, it's not a soapbox. I mean, soapboxing quite helps. It's what do we do? So by providing a resource, providing case studies, and we're working closely with BSI, which is that's tremendous. BSI and the Safety Industry Manufacturers Federation, they're very interested and keen to push this forward. So it's going to say, here's the issue, here are some solutions, here are some mechanisms. This is how we make a difference, rather than we're complaining about this.
Yes.
We like outcomes.
Absolutely. And I think that brings me to a good point that I'm sure you're very aware of, and that's the importance of allyship and having, everyone involved. This is not just a female thing. This is it affects everyone one way or another, whether directly or indirectly.
Oh, absolutely. And we've had some input from men who raise issues around, they're all different shapes and sizes. As BSI said, I'm sure there are plenty of chaps who wouldn't mind trousers with a little more give in different places. But there are other issues, there may be some physical disability that needs to be accommodated, or it's how do you get face protection if you're not clean shaven as a man, or
Yeah.
if you wear a hijab. And we've got a link with somebody with head coverings on the issue of how you manage that. So you're right, it's not just a women thing, it's a people thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your insight, and it's so great to have someone so passionate pushing this, because I feel inspired. I know a lot of other people will do, and we'll do what we can to support you and push this forward, and let's hope that eventually we all have PPE that fits.
That would be great, wouldn't it?